Hey everybody, welcome back to another video in the happiness series. This is the second episode, but also really exciting because this is the one where we start diving into the weeds a little bit and talking about the applications and stuff that you can actually start applying to your life to live a happier life. So this will be the first principle in regards to the 7 that we'll cover. My name is Dr. Matthew Shim. I'm the owner of Peak Brain Performance Centers here in Colorado Springs. And like we discussed in the last video, we're basically breaking down this gentleman, Sean Akers' work that he wrote about in a book entitled The Happiness Advantage. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what is happiness? Google defines happiness as a feeling or showing of pleasure or contentment. But what does that actually mean? Pleasure and contentment can be provoked in different people by different things. And so how do we really ever become happy? And this is actually why scientists often refer to it as subjective happiness, because it's based upon how you feel about your own life. And so the best judge of your own happiness is obviously going to be you. And so what I'm going to do here is, before we actually get into the things that you can start applying to your life, I'm going to give you some of the studies that show happiness at work, basically, and the things that you can reap by living a more happy life. So in this study, what they did is they measured the initial level of positive emotions in 272 employees. And then they followed their job performance over the next 18 months. And they found that those who were happier at the beginning ended up receiving better evaluations and higher pay later on. And so this just goes to show how that formula that we talked about in the very first video has to be false, because that formula is basically, if I work really hard, eventually I'll become successful. And typically with success comes higher financial compensation. And due to being compensated better financially, that's going to lead me into being happy. And so this just goes to show that that can't be the case, because these people were already happy, and 18 months later, they reaped the benefits of higher financial compensation. Another thing on that same line is, this study found that how happy individuals were as college freshmen predicted how high their income was 19 years later, regardless of their initial levels of wealth. So again, it just goes to show that that formula can't be right. And this is a really interesting study. What they did is they took 180 nuns, all born before 1917, and they were asked to write down their thoughts in autobiographical journal entries every day. More than 5 decades later, a group of researchers decided to kind of thumb through those journal entries. And what they found was that the nuns who had more joyful content in their journal entries lived nearly 10 times longer than those whose entries were negative or even neutral in nature. Another surprising thing is that by age 85, 90% of the happiest quartile of nuns were still alive, compared to only 34% of the least happy quartile. And obviously, these nuns were not excessively happy at 20 years old because they knew that they were going to live longer. And so it just goes to show that happiness can improve your physical health, which in turn keeps us working longer and faster, and therefore makes us more likely to succeed. Another study here. Interesting study. These researchers injected subjects with a strain of the common cold. And a week later, the individuals who were happier before the start of the study, because they measured that before the study, had fought off the virus much better than the less happy individuals. So this just goes to show that companies and leaders who take measures to cultivate a happy workplace will not only have more productive and efficient workers, but they will also have less absenteeism and lower healthcare expenditures. And so I think this is really neat for someone like myself, who is in the position to employ other people. Is I want to figure out, how can I cultivate that happy workplace so that I have employees that are more productive and efficient, and also take less days off of work due to being sick or whatever it may be. Another thing that applies really great to me, since I am a provider, is this study. What they did is they separated a group of doctors into 3 groups. The first group was primed to feel happy. And the second one, they were given neutral but medical related statements to read prior to their activity. And the third group was just the control group, and they just didn't receive anything. And what they found was that happy doctors made the right diagnosis much faster and exhibited more creativity. And on average, they came to a correct diagnosis only 20% of the way through the manuscript, which was nearly twice as fast as the control group, which I think is pretty neat, right? And so, of course, Since happiness is subjective and not the same for everyone, we all have our own happiness boosters. So maybe yours is listening to a particular song or playing basketball or petting a dog or doing laundry or whatever it may be. And so now the question becomes, that was really neat, but were those people that were happier prior to the study, how were they like that? What can we do to actually live those happier lives? So let's dive into that. First thing is meditate. And so actually what they did in this study is monks on average spend years meditating. And what actually has been shown in the literature is that by these years that these monks spend meditating, they actually grow their prefrontal cortex, which is the area that if you are an individual with, let's say, depression, and you've looked into alternative healthcare solutions like transcranial magnetic stem, you'll know that whenever you do TMS for depression, they actually put it on that prefrontal cortex region. And so it's really neat in the fact that just meditating alone can actually grow that region. And studies have shown that in the minutes after meditating, we actually experience more feelings of being calm and content, as well as heightened awareness of empathy. And so this study just went to show that regular meditation can permanently rewire your brain to raise levels of happiness, lower stress, and even improve immune function. The next one is, what are you actually looking forward to? This is something that I very much so put into my schedules. I always have to have some sort of trip planned off that I'm looking forward to. And so what they found in this study was that people who just thought about watching their favorite movie actually raised their endorphin levels by 27%. And so just anticipating alone, just anticipating the future reward can actually lighten up the pleasure centers in your brain as much as the actual reward itself will. And so I thought that was pretty neat. Another one is conscious acts of kindness. And I emphasize the word conscious there because in the study, they told individuals to complete 5 acts of kindness over the course of a day, and report feeling much happier than control groups. And that feeling lasts for many subsequent days if they did 5 acts of kindness over the day. But the important thing here that I emphasized at the beginning is conscious acts of kindness. So if you want to actually reap the psychological benefits, make sure that you do these things deliberately and consciously. You can't just go lie down in bed at night, and before you go to bed, you're just thinking, oh, you know what? At the bank earlier today, I held the door open for that gal, and that was pretty nice of me. The key is these are conscious acts of kindness. So you have to be deliberate about these actions before you're doing them and be able to bask on them. Next one is talking about your space. Spending 20 minutes outside in good weather not only boosted mood, but broadened thinking and improved working memory. And so this is one of those things that may or may not always be feasible, especially like right now here in Colorado Springs, it's raining a lot. And so while we may not always have complete control over our surroundings, we can make specific efforts to infuse those situations with positivity. For example, when people place, let's say, pictures of their family or friends all over the place, whether it be on their desk or maybe by their bedside table, whatever it may be, is what they're basically doing is they're ensuring a hit of positive emotion every time they glance over in that direction and they see that bright smiling face of their loved one. And also the opposite works in regards to this. Studies have shown that the less negative TV we watch, specifically violent media, the happier we are. And just to expand on that a little bit further, this study actually says that people who watch less TV are actually more accurate judges of life's risk and rewards than those who subject themselves to the tales of crime, tragedy, and death that appear right after the 10 o'clock news. And this is because these people are less likely to be sensationalized or fed one-sided sources of information, and thus they see reality a little bit more clearly. Next one is exercise, which I think is really important, especially since this series is kind of working as a continuation of the autoimmune series. And something that we emphasize in the autoimmune series is in regards to managing an autoimmune disease is how important exercise can play for a lot of different people. And so what they did in this study is they took 3 groups of depressed patients who were all assigned different coping strategies. Group 1 was prescribed the traditional antidepressant. Group 2 was told that they needed to exercise for 45 minutes 3 times per week. And group 3 did a combination of the 2. After 4 months, all 3 groups experienced similar improvements in happiness, which is, great. But the important and the really exciting part is that the groups were then tested 6 months later to assess their relapse rate. And of those that took the medication alone, 38% had now slipped back into their depressed state. And those in the combination group fared slightly better with a relapse rate of 31%. And then the really exciting part is that the exercise group was at an astonishing 9% relapse rate. So physical activity proved to not only be an incredible mood lifter, but also a long lasting one. So this just goes to show that physical activity can boost mood and enhance our work performance in a number of other ways, as well as by improving motivation and feelings of mastery, reducing stress and anxiety, and helping get us in that flow state or that feeling of total engagement that we usually get to when we feel our most productive. Another one, spend money, which I know this may sound a little bit controversial, but hear me out. This one says that positive feelings we get from material objects are frustratingly fleeting. Spending money on experiences, especially ones with other people, produce positive emotions that are both more meaningful and more lasting. So what they did in this study is they interviewed 150 people about their most recent purchases. And what they found was that money spent on activities brought far more pleasure than material purchases. And also spending money on other people has been proven to boost happiness. For example, in one study, they took 46 students and they gave them each $20 to spend. And half of the group was told to spend their money, their $20, on another person. And they reported being significantly happier at the end of the day than the ones instructed to spend their money on themselves. Last one here is, what are your strengths? This goes back to what we were talking about before, is everybody has different things that boost their happiness. And so we have to figure out what is your strength, right? Or what is the thing that's going to make you the most happy? So everyone is good at something. And when we exercise those skills, whatever they may be, we experience a boost of happiness. And so this study they did is a group of psychologists actually came up with 24 character strengths that most contribute to human happiness. And then they constructed a survey where they identified each person's top 5 signature strengths. So 577 individuals went and assessed their top 5 of the 24 character strengths. And those individuals were then encouraged to pick one of their strengths and use it in a new way each day for a week. They concluded the experiment by finding that these individuals were significantly happier and they felt less depressed than the control group. And 6 months later, those levels of happiness persisted. So figure out what it is that is your strength and do that, and figure out different ways that you can put that strength out into the universe every day. So I hope that you enjoyed that and you go out and put some of these principles into action, and also tune in for the next video where we talk about mindset, which is something that I think a lot of people, especially in today's society, struggle with, and something that I personally spent a lot of time developing and learning more about over the last year or two. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or give my office a call, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.